Hello, students. So today we are going to do arrays, two-dimensional arrays. Okay, so in today's class, we will see how to initialize a 2D arrays, how to input elements into it, how to display in matrix forms. And once you understand the basic concept of 2D array, you can do programming on your own. It's very simple. Once you understand the concept with respect to the address, how the elements in 2D arrays are stored, then it becomes very easy to apply the logics in this 2D arrays. This is more simpler compared to single dimensional array concepts. Okay. Yeah, so let's begin. Yeah, so as you already know, in single dimensional arrays, how we initialized the elements. For example, we have taken int a is equal to new int and the number of elements. Say, for example, there are 4 elements, so the array size is 4. So what does it mean basically? It means the elements are stored in contiguous memory locations. For example, like this. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So when you create an array, like when this statement executes, internally what happens is the memory allocation happens, but you also know that memory is allocated only if elements are assigned to the variable. And here the default value for int is 0. So internally, the 0 will be assigned to all the 4 locations. Okay. So this is what exactly happens in the memory through the execution of this statement. Okay. Now, coming to 2D arrays, this is for one-dimensional array. We do it like this. Okay. Now, in 2D arrays, the difference is we just use double brackets, new and int, and here also you will have 2 brackets, one representing the number of rows and another representing the columns. So you must have seen in your math, you have matrices. So here also, it is when you want to store something in rows and columns. So that we cannot do in single dimensional array where elements are in contiguous memory locations, either in single row or in single column. But if you want it in rows and column forms, for example, arranging books in a library or arranging, in grocery store where you have rows and columns. So there we have to apply 2D arrays, right? Now here, for example, the number of rows are, say, 2 rows and there are 3 columns. So internally, it will appear something like this. These are rows, the 2 rows. Again, the index starts from 0 only. So this is rows. The horizontal ones are the rows and columns are represented by the vertical line. So 0, 1 and 2. Now, since the index starts with 0, it will be always 1 less than the size. So since there are 2 rows, you have 0th row and first the index part. And here columns 0, 1 and 2. So your 2 rows and 3 columns will look something like this internally. And the first element which will be given the index value 0, 0. First one represents rows and second one represents the column. Similarly here 0, 1, then 0, 2. And here again the row number is 1. So 1 followed by the column. And then row followed by the column, row number followed by the column. So this becomes the address of each value we will be entering in the array. Okay, so when this statement executes, internally what happens? The 0 will be assigned to all the elements. the default values. Okay, because unless and until a value is given to the array or the variable or the element, the memory cannot be allocated. Okay, that we also have that concept in constructors. So you can just refer that. So after I create this, and if I write system.out.println a of 0, 0. See, we didn't input any element, but if I write SOPn a of 0, 0, the output you will get will be 0. That is because of the default values which are given by the compiler automatically while array creation happens. Is that clear? So single dimensional array and 2D array look something like this internally when created. Okay, so that is with respect to initialization. You can create array of any data type the same way. Okay, once again, let's see. Here, the two square brackets are there, and here the first one represents the number of rows and second one represents the columns. Okay, then coming to input. In single dimensional array, we use a single for loop int I equal to 0, I less than the general one is always a dot length and I plus plus, and you write a of I is equal to sc dot next int. Okay, this is when you have single dimensional array, and since there is one statement, the blocks are optional. You can skip it or you can put it, means same. Right, now when we have 2D arrays, here what we do is, here we will be using two for loops, one for representing number of rows and another for representing number of columns. So it will look something like this. Int I equal to 0, I less than say 2 and I plus plus. If it is 2 rows and 3 columns, we will take it like this. And the second for loop for representing the number of columns, j less than 3, j plus plus. And you will write a of I j is equal to sc dot next int. Okay, and you close the inner for and the outer for. So if you want to see the dry run, I will show you. See, when I and j are the two variables here. So when I is 0, then it goes here, it's true, so it enters. J becomes 0, and then it goes to the condition, it is true, and then it enters the block. And when the user enters a value, it will be allocated to a of 0, 0, which is here. So suppose I enter 10. So this will get replaced by 10. Okay. Then from here, the control goes to j. J becomes 1. Then back to condition. It is true. So the second value I enter will go to a of 0, 1, which is here. And if I enter 20, so this will get replaced by 20. So like that, it will continue. The third value, say 30. And when my j becomes 3, 3 less than 3 will be false, and it will come out of the inner for loop. And from here, it will go back to j. Now, sorry, it will go back to I, the outer for loop, which will become 1. And then the process continues. It's true. And again, it will enter the loop, and j will take 3 values for which it will be true. Okay, 0 less than 1, 1 less than equal to 1, 2 less than, oh sorry, this is 0, 1 and 2 will be less than 3. Therefore, it will be true, and the values you enter will go into these locations. And when j becomes 3, it will be false, it will come out. And third time, when I becomes 2, 2 less than 2 is false, it comes out. So this is how you input elements into the array. Very simple. Just in the outer for loop represents rows, Inner for loop represents column, and you just write a of ij is equal to st dot next int. Depending on what type of elements you are accepting, this function will change. Okay. Yeah, so what we just saw, same thing. You can just have a look once again. See, the syntax for creating 2D array is this way. First, you write the data type, you write the array name followed by 2 brackets, new, and then the data type, rows and columns. Fine. And if you want to initialize the 2D array directly, we do it something like this. Like for a single dimensional array, you will initialize the elements like this. So in 2D array, we do the same way. We do same thing within flower brackets separated by comma. So internally, it will look something like this. This is the array with 2 rows and 3 columns. Okay, this is how you initialize directly. And the pictorial representation of above array will be like this. The 0th row, 0th column, 0, 1, 0, 2, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. Okay, so you can just understand through this figure. A of 0, 0 represents the element at 0th index and 0th column. So that is 1. So just understand the basic 2D array through this picture format. And yeah, so once you get this right, we can just go for accepting elements, which I already told you. Yeah. Yeah, so you can input the elements using you create an array and then you input elements into the array using 2 for loops. The outer for loop represents rows, the inner for loop represents column, and using scanner functions, you can input elements into the array. Okay. Yes. The next thing is displaying the array elements in a matrix form. Now, you must have already done nested loops. So there we use this display part. So the outer for loop, inner for loop, and in the inner loop, we write SOP A of ij. Now, for example, these are the elements. Okay. So when I is 0, j is 0. Okay. So when the condition is true, it will print A of ij. The output I will just show you briefly. A of ij, it will print 1, and then j will become 1, true, A of 0, 1, which is this one. And then j becomes 2, true, and then A of 0, 2, which is 3. Okay, then j becomes 3. 3 less than 3 is false, so it will come out. And here we write SOPn. So SOPn, we are not printing anything, but SOPn will shift control to the next line. Okay, and then the process continues 1, and then the next 3 elements will get printed here 4, 5, 6. When j becomes 3, the inner loop ends. It will come out and again goes to the next line. But here, when I becomes 2, 2 less than 2 false, and it will come out. So you can see the elements presented in matrix form. So if you want to display the 2D array in matrix form, this is the code for it. You can just try that. And if you want, I can show you the program also. Just a minute. Yeah, so here is the program for displaying, to input elements in a 3x4 array and display them in matrix form. Okay, so here what we do, we first created an array, the syntax, okay, and then we input elements into the array representing rows, columns, and using nextInt, you input elements into a 2D array, okay, and then comes the display part, display in matrix form, which is something like this. Just now we discussed the same. One more thing to be noted here is, see, in general, a dot length gives you the size of the array or the number of elements in a single dimensional array. So in 2D array, the outer for loop here, a dot length represent number of rows, and a of 0 or a of 1 or a of 2 dot length will represent number of columns. This is the general way of representing rows and columns. Okay, so you can be asked in MCQs and all. So please remember that. And now I will just show you the output of this program. First we compile, and this is an array of order 3 by 4. Okay. Yes, you right click, call the function directly. Now enter array elements. Since there are 3 by 4 is the order of array, so there will be total 3 into 4, 12 elements to be passed. So I'll just randomly give. Okay, I think I have finished. Yes. So you can see the elements getting displayed in matrix form. So just understand the concept, revise, and try to do programs using 2D arrays, and reach me out, give your comments, keep sharing, liking. Okay, so this was the end of class for today. I hope it was helpful. Thank you, children.